In looking at this iris and using the chart, we can see that there's a little bit of pigment there. That's the first thing you want to look at is pigment, because when you start using your chart, you're looking at the influencers. And so the analytical pigment, there is a little bit there. And going along, you can see that they don't really have any expressive signs. And so they wouldn't be as expressive. They do have a bit of the mediator in that the fibers are uniform and going all the way around, but they're very tight and very straight and have that stretched appearance along with a small pupil. So this person is actually a neurogenic. And so with the neurogenic qualities, they tend to be a little bit more driven and a little bit more intense. Okay, so in using the chart, they're obviously not a catalyst. They have the intensity and the passion and the purpose of a neurogenic. So with the indicators, we look for the anxiety tetanic signs. And so with the anxiety tetanic, you're looking for those contraction furrows, and you really don't see any. I'm also looking for the next sign, which is the hydrogenoid, which are the little white tophi that are seen around the outer ciliary edge, and we really don't see that either. What we do see is the scurf rim, the dark rim around the outer edge of the iris, and that is the ring of purpose. And so we have determination and being driven in purpose due to the neurogenic qualities as well as the ring of purpose. The next one on your chart is the lipemic diathesis, and we really don't see that white ring around the edge. So we're looking at the ability of this person to accomplish a lot, have purpose, to get things done, to be really a mental thinker. We've got the little bit of pigment for the analyzer qualities. And so they would have the ability to look at a situation and evaluate it and analyze it. Okay, so let's take a look at the collarette. And the collarette going around here, it's actually pretty balanced. So they have more of a balance in their intensity. Okay, you can also use some of the time risk factors if you wanted to look at areas of the collarette too, and if you were working with the person's health and also their emotional experiences and possibly characteristics that may create emotional manifestations physically. And so, but if you're looking at this person as an employee or a worker, then they definitely have the ability to get a lot done and be very driven. Often these types will end up owning their own business and working for themselves because they're very, very you can't keep them inside the box kind of thing. And so they're amazing people to be able to get the job done. Here is another example of using the chart for the emotions and to see where the emotions have manifested into something physical and how to understand the person's experiences and their reactions to them. So if you look at the very top of the iris at about 0 here or 60, and then you come over between around 2 to 4 years old. The black words in the chart will be visionary and driven. Okay, and then the chakra colors will be a purple or indigo. Over here it goes on along with lots of very large lacunas and openings. And so we know that this person, because of these large lacunas, open and closed lacunas and openings, we know that they're connective tissue. So they're going to be feeling and experiencing life in a more dramatic or interactive way. So we go through these other open lacunas, and we're also looking a little bit at the collarette as well, but more at the lacunas. And so the next one is at about age 7. And the words, the black words, are to do with the emotion of authority. Okay, and then we go on to here around age 13 with power and strength. And so both of those have to do with the red chakra. Okay, so the root chakra. going in here around to age 14 and then also through 16 and pretty much where the colorette comes out here involving age 18. Those are all to do with the green chakra, and they have issues to do with guarding and freedom and commitment and grief and all heart things. So it's very feeling. It's a very feeling time, feeling emotions. And so going right into the motion of freedom and issues and challenges and experiences regarding freedom. So when we go into here in around age 19 and 20, we're coming into, there's actually comes right down in here with this little crypt here. And so that has to do with dignity or anger. We also come into this one here with sharing and envy. And so those are a couple to do with the yellow chakra. So those have to do with will. And so as we move along here with another diamond-shaped crypt here, has to do with trust and fear. So these are adrenal issues, and also they have to do with the red chakra. Coming along here, we have another one, and then we have a raised cord here to do with honoring, withdrawing. And then as we move into here between in around age 38 and 40, this whole area here has to do with independence, comes into right here where there's the pigment into survival, and so flexibility and that type of thing. So these are all red chakra. So as we move forward and we go in here with this one here is to do with communication in the blue chakra. So if you put together all of these different black words and these little emotions, they really have to do with will, with this person being so sensitive and yet wanting to identify themselves and wanting to have power and will and being able to go into having freedom and creating their own lives with their creativity and their sensitivity and really pushing and pushing forward, feeling everything and then still needing to push forward. So we have a lot of green chakra here, which is the feeling and emotion. And then the will challenges here. And then coming into really the red chakra, which is more of a warrior energy coming here. So really fighting for what they need and what supports them and coming into communication and the communication being so important to them creating the life that they want. So I think validating what they have experienced as a young person here is really important to create a smooth going, so to speak, for the future part up along here. Okay, so this one here again goes into pretty much attaining that ability, okay? Because at about age 55, we have unattached and insight, and so they really gain who they are at this point here. So many times we can see the sensitivities and their connection with the emotions. We also have the color orange, which is the orange chakra, and pancreas, so sweetness in life. So you can really see where they've really developed their power or had experiences in learning how to develop their power. Here is an example of the constricted collarette. So when you look at your collarette signs, it gives you an indicator of how the person may be, in addition to all of the other influencers and indicators on your chart. So using your chart and having a look, we would go through the influencers to see if they're analytical, which is the pigment, and we don't see any pigment signs. If they're expressive, which would be open and closed lacuna throughout the iris. And we do have a few spaces in between the fibers, which are called rarefications in here, but we really don't have any open and closed lacunas, so there are no expressive signs in the influencers. The next one is mediator, and the mediator is when you have the fiber structure fairly uniform, going all around the ciliary zone, and of course, this is a very uniform iris with many fibers all together in pretty good alignment, so they're definitely a mediator. And they wouldn't be a catalyst because the catalyst is a combination of expressive and analytical. Using the chart indicators, we're looking for anxiety tetanic, which are the contraction furrows. And I think this is a reflection from the light, so I don't think that's a contraction furrow. And this also looks to be a little bit of mucus congestion along here, so I don't really think that's a contraction furrow either. So they would not be anxiety tetanic. And when we look for hydrogenoid as the next indicator, you're looking for the little white tophi, and we don't see that. With the scurf rim, you need to see a dark ring around the outer edge of the iris. We have a little bit here, but not really over here, so we really wouldn't consider them having too much scurf rim for an indicator. And then the lipemic diathesis is where you see the white ring around the outer edge of the iris, and we aren't seeing that either. So you would go in and you would work with the pupil and receive any information that the pupil wants to share with you and write that down. What we do know is that this person is a mediator, and they like to have things smooth, they like to create things to be in harmony, they like to have everything in alignment, and they're also a little bit introverted because of the constricted collarette. With this particular iris, I'd like to show you the different signs and how to use the chart. So when you're using the emotional blueprint chart, you want to be looking at the iris and going through the influencers first to perform your analysis. With the influencers, the first one is analytical. And so with analytical, what we're looking for are the pigments. When we look for the pigments, of course, we see them in this iris. We have a lot of orange pigment along here, and then we have the orange here. So they do have pigment, so they would tend to be analytical, and they actually have quite a lot of pigment. Now, I have noticed in my work that with the pigment going around the collarette, this is actually called a central heterochromia, that it doesn't seem to have as much emphasis as pigment in spots throughout the iris, such as here. These spots of pigment tend to make one be a little bit more analytical rather than the central heterochromia. And so the central heterochromia doesn't seem to intensify their level of being analytical. It is more the actual spot that would signify how analytical a person is. The next influencer is expressive. And so when we look for the expressive signs, we're looking for lacuna, open and closed lacuna. And this person does have closed lacuna. Okay, so they are polyglandular. We also have space in between the fibers here. And so both of these are indicators that this is just a little bit connective tissue, and we have some polyglandular, so yes, they are expressive. The next one is mediator. Are they a mediator? When we look at a mediator, we want to see that the outside of the ciliary zone is very smooth with the fibers, that there would not be polyglandular lacuna or connective tissue open and closed lacuna. So they aren't as much as a mediator as they would be expressive and analytical. So they would tend to be a catalyst because they have the expressive and they have the analytical, so they would fall under the category of being a catalyst, in which case they have the ability to be very bright, vibrant and very active and capable of doing many things and having many expressions and being very creative as well as being analytical. So then you want to look at your indicators. With the indicators, are they anxiety tetanic? Because then that would give them the drive. They would have the focus and the drive to go forward. And I do see the little tophi along here. It looks like there might be a tiny little contraction furrow, but it's pretty hard to see. So the indicator of them being anxiety tetanic is not really there. The hydrogenoid. Remember, the hydrogenoid are these little tophi that are around the outer ciliary zone. And so when you see tophi, it makes them hydrogenoid. So yes, they do have that hydrogenoid ring of harmony. And so they do like to make things happen and they do like to analyze. But they also want to have harmony in their lives and in the lives around them. The next one is the scurf rim. And the scurf rim is the dark edge around very edge of the iris. And so with the dark edge, we don't really see it here. When you want to look for a scurf rim, it has to be a distinct dark edge. So that purpose part is not there. And so the scurf rim would be just a little bit less emphasis on purpose, more of the demonstrative and dramatic and expressive and analytical, rather than being driven. The next one that we're looking at as an indicator is a lipemic diathesis, and I don't see one there. The lipemic diathesis is that really foggy white ring around the outer edge of the iris. And so this person is very creative and analytical, and they like to see things happen, and they like to make things happen, and they like to figure out how to make things happen. They may not have quite as much drive or focus, but this is a bonus because they would be more relaxed in their attitude. They wouldn't be so driven that they couldn't see the bigger picture. They would have a much more bigger open focus and be more open to ideas and creations. And so that's the type of personality that you would be working with. So it'd be very good to work with art and anything to do with creation and figuring things out. Here we have an iris which is lymphatic, and we also have some pigment. So those are the things that you'd notice right off the top of your head, and then you want to use your chart and look at the influencers. So the pigment is one of the influencers that make them analytical. So here we have the little pigments here, and so we know that they're analytical. And then using the chart, looking at the other influencers, are they expressive? So the expressive, when we look for expressive signs, we look for open and closed lacuna. And we do have a few lacuna here, a few here, and they look to be a bit polyglandular. So there is some expressive, and then it looks like we've got a little bit of connective tissue here too. So they do have that expressive quality. The next one on the influencers is the mediator, and when we look for mediator, we're looking for smooth, uniform fibers. They do have some mediator qualities going up in through here, so that can be an influence as well. With the catalyst is really a combination of the expressive and the analytical. And so we really do have that combination of a catalyst with the expressive and the pigments, which makes them more analytical, and then we also have mediator as well. So this is a really well-rounded, balanced person who has qualities of everything. With the expressive, the person is more sensitive and takes things deeper and is more open to listening. And so we have the mediator qualities where they really want to have harmony and have everything happen in the most perfect way. And then the pigment would make them to where they really want to figure things out and are a little more analytical. So the next part of your chart where it says indicators, you want to look and see if there are any indicators that also would influence this personality. The next indicator is anxiety tetanic. And with the anxiety tetanic, we're looking for contraction furrows. I see a little bit of shading here, but I don't really see true contraction furrows much, and so probably not too much of that quality. I think this line here is probably a reflection from the light. So the next one we're looking for is the hydrogenoid, and if they have those hydrogenoid tophi. And we don't have them very clear here, but there are some little tophi. And so yes, they do have that hydrogenoid indicator, which makes them, again, want to have harmony. Do they have scurf rim? Yes, there is some scurf rim here, and so they also have that scurf rim, that ring of purpose. The next one is the lipemic diathesis, and so I don't really see that white shading along the outer edge of the iris, so no, I don't think there's any lipemic diathesis. And then you're going to look into the pupil, and with permission, asking to connect on a deep level with their pupil and allowing whatever their soul would like to communicate to you, and then you will accept that information and write it down and just ask if that makes sense to them or means anything to them. Okay, at this point you'll open the chart to the inside and you'll go into whatever comes to your mind, whatever it is that catches your eye. And if you want to work with the collarette and you want to look at some of the time risk ages, you can do that and interpret the meaning in the chart. Or you can have a look at the pigments and whatever's under the pigments and relate that to the chart. You want to be using the chart colors. All of the colored words have to do with the chakras and represent the chakra representations. And you can also look at the black words, which are the emotions underneath each of the signs that you might want to inquire about. What you want to do is you want to be gathering information. And so if you see many different areas that represent the green chakra, then you would write that down as a lot of green chakra influencers. If you see a lot to do with the red chakra or the root chakra, then that would have a bigger influence on that person's life. You also want to be looking at the black words, and if you see a lot of black words that basically mean the same thing emotionally, then that brings you more on being able to analyze the actual pattern that the person is and has been experiencing throughout their life, so that you're able to help them with the pattern. So that's how you want to do the full analysis in using the chart. With this iris, we want to discuss using the chart and doing the analysis. Using your chart, you're going to look at the analysis sign. And so with using the influencers, the first thing we want to do is look at the analytical markings. The analytical markings are the pigment. And so right here we can see a little bit of a gray, orangey brown, but we really aren't seeing specific pigment. What we're looking for is actual pigments like an orange or a specific spot. When you see those pigment spots like flecks onto the iris, then those are the real indicators of that the person tends to be more analytical. We do have just a little bit of a smearing of orange here, a little bit of smearing of yellow, so they may have a little bit of analytical influences, but not a lot. Okay, when you're looking for those analytical signs and for the person to be very analytical, you need to have specific pigments. So the next one is expressive, and when we look for expressive, we look for open and closed lacuna. We look to see if the person is either connective tissue or polyglandular, and this person is actually both. And the lacuna and the connective tissue are very big, and so this person is very expressive, very sensitive. When you see the holes in between the fibers in the lacunas, and they go very dark, very deep, right down to the posterior epithelium, that black background, then the person is so much more sensitive. They're more prone to really feeling everything that everyone says and everything that everyone does. So it's really important to take note that this type of person will be very sensitive. Okay? So they're very expressive too. They really feel things. The next one on the chart for an influencer is the mediator. And the mediator is when the iris fibers are very smooth and uniform. And of course, we don't have that in the ciliary zone. The next influencer is the catalyst. Now, the catalyst will be a combination of the expressive and the analytical. And we really don't have enough pigment to be considered analytical in that way, and so no, they would not be a catalyst. They would be very expressive. The next one down is your indicators, and so with the indicators, the first one we're looking for is the anxiety tetanic. And the anxiety tetanic is the contraction furrows. And so contraction furrows are usually in the outer ciliary zone, and we don't really see any. It's a little hint of possibly something here, but I think that that's a reflection from the light. So no, there are no contraction furrows, so there's no indicator of being anxiety tetanic. The next one is hydrogenoid, and the hydrogenoid are when you see the little tiny tophi, a little tiny round cotton ball or pearl-like little balls around the outer edge of the iris. And we don't see those, so we don't have hydrogenoid indicators. The next one we're looking for is scurf rim. Do they have a scurf rim? And a scurf rim is the dark edge around the edge of the iris, and we really only have a little bit here. So that scurf rim is an indicator for purpose and searching for purpose, and so we just have a little bit of that scurf rim. The next one is the lipemic diathesis, and that is the gray or white sort of cloud that goes around the outer edge of the iris, and we really don't have that. We have a little bit of shading on the iris, but that is not a lipemic diathesis. So we don't have that. The next thing you'll look for is in the pupil signs, and in the pupil signs you want to look for images or shapes or colors or symbols, and you want to just gently go in with respect, looking into the pupil and asking the soul to communicate with you whatever it would like to share. And then you breathe in, allow yourself to receive the information, and then come back out and write it down. Remember to not stay in the iris or the pupil for more than 5 seconds at a time with your light. The rest of the information in the chart goes into looking at any of the chakra colors that may have give you indicators as to where emotions might be stuck and what types of things that might be helpful for the person. So when you're using the inside of the chart, remember to go around, take a look, using a little bit of Daniele Laurito's work with the collarette and where it comes out. Okay, and I do suggest you get his book to really study that thoroughly. Here the collarette comes way out here at 15. And so that's a lot of interaction with heart and lung issues and challenges, and so that has a lot to do with the green chakra. The collarette comes out again here at about age 20 as well, coming in with the yellow chakra, and then it dips in here. And then you'll work your way all the way around, looking at the different areas. And remember, when you're using the inside of the chart, the black words are the emotions, the colored words have to do with the chakras, and of course the physical body and all of the organs and parts of the physical body. So you're going to be incorporating all of that into getting a good idea of that person's spiritual, physical, and emotional self.